So here's a project that I recently did. It was a illustration for a reader of ice cubes, and I painted this illustration for him, but there was something that I wanted to add at the end, which was in this payphone right here. I wanted to add like a reflection effect. This is painted with watercolors. So I cut a piece of Frisket paper and I'm going to apply it to here. I used some Frisket paper, which is the type of paper that used to be used a lot for airbrushing, and I just happened to find a roll of it lingering at an art supply store, and so I bought it. And I figure that this Frisket paper is probably pretty old. This roll is probably pretty old because the paper just it sticks, but it's not easy to remove. Normally Frisket paper is supposed to be easy to remove, but this particular Frisket paper is really kind of hard to remove once you stick it onto the drawing. So anyway, I want to cut out these spaces here and sort of mask out the other areas so I can do a watercolor effect, which is to put a reflection on that metallic part of this payphone. So I need to cut out these areas with a blade, and then just remove the areas that I'm going to paint with, and the other areas will be masked and protected. And once the paint dries, I can lift those areas up, and my reflection effect should just be applied to the areas that I want it to, without, impinging on the other areas. So I need to peel off the areas that I cut so that I can paint in those areas. And there's the front face of the phone where the dial is. And sort of the metallic areas of the phone. Where I don't want to paint is, I don't want to paint on those little signs. Payphones used to have these little signs with, pertinent information printed on them. And that's that part with the little red writing in it. And also around the change door down at the bottom, I don't want to paint that either. So the change door is going to get a reflection, but not the surrounding piece of metal, which typically was black. Not always, sometimes it was also chromed, but basically what I'm trying to get is a little bit of a chrome effect on the front face of the payphone and on the change door. So I've cut out those areas, and I'm lifting off the Frisket from those areas. And this Frisket is somehow, I don't know, it must be old. It must have been sitting around for a long time, because it's kind of hard to lift. And sometimes it actually gets caught on the paper, and because with my razor blade I might have cut into the paper, it starts to lift the paper too. Now, to be honest, I should be using illustration board. This is just a piece of Bristol. Illustration board is pretty expensive these days. It used to be a lot more common, but it's pretty expensive to get illustration board. So I'm just using a piece of Bristol. And this is just some watercolor paints that I found actually, believe it or not, dumpster diving. I live nearby a school, and they were throwing a bunch of, I guess, classroom supplies away, and these paints were in them. So I rescued these paints, and they're obviously very sort of cheap, poor quality paints, but hey, I don't care. I'm just going to paint with using these paints that I got for free. So I'm trying to do this reflection here using blue, and I'm using a very diluted, well, first I put the blue down and then I dilute it with water. So there's my 2 stripes of blue. And then with some water, I'll come in and give it more of a washy effect. So now all I have on my brush is water, and I'm just sort of diluting those stripes. I'm trying to go for a chrome reflective effect. I mean, it's not the best result, but you know, I just wanted to try this out as an experiment using this Frisket that I had found, because I remember using Frisket paper with airbrushes, and I figured, well, it can work with watercolors as well, and that way I can do this reflection effect on the front of the payphone without having to you know, be too careful of where I paint. I just had to dab it with my blotting paper there because there was a little bit too much paint, and now I'm going over it with water. My brush only has water on it, and it's kind of giving a washy effect to that blue. So hopefully this effect works. And you know, with the Frisket, I'm not getting any water on any of the other paint. This paint is such poor quality that if I dropped a drop of water onto it, it would immediately mark the paint. So the paint doesn't set. It's just, this paint never sets. It's always still reacts to water. Okay, so there we go. There's the effect on my payphone. Now I need to remove the Frisket paper, and you can see how it's really sticky. It shouldn't be this sticky, or tacky, or however you want to call it, because normally Frisket paper, you're supposed to be able to work with it. So you're supposed to be able to lay it down and then lift it and move it, but this Frisket, I think it's probably been sitting around in the shop for a long time, so it's very, very tacky, and it doesn't lift that easily. So it's a bit annoying and a bit hard to work with, actually. So, but I'm just lifting it off from the parts that I didn't want to leave any marks on, and you can see it. You know, it seems to work pretty well. It certainly does the job of protecting the drawing underneath. It's just that it's very, very sticky, and sometimes, unfortunately, it will lift the paper. So I'm trying to be careful here with my Frisket. Try not to lift any of the paper underneath. With my blade, I'm trying to lift up the Frisket. So with the blade, I just scoot the blade under one little edge of the Frisket, and then I try to pull it off with my fingers. And you can see it kind of worked okay. I'm pretty happy with the result here. Now I'm just painting that enclosure black around the change door, and there you go. So here's my payphone with the little reflective effect using Frisket paper. So it was an experiment doing watercolors using Frisket paper for this illustration that I did for Awesome Reader of ICECUBES. There you go. Thanks for watching.